Welcome to the channel where wholesalers and flippers learn to unlock their potential and rise to consistent six-figure months. You're not just building a business, you're building freedom, confidence, and a life that you are proud of. Every episode here moves you one step closer, so let's get started. I am Brent Daniels, Mr. TTP, and we have an excellent show for you today. Now, this is all about understanding the different wholesaling regulations across the nation. All right, guys, here are the states that require a real estate license to wholesale: Illinois, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Virginia after 2 deals in a year, Michigan, North Dakota, Arkansas, Connecticut, and Mississippi. All right. Here are the states that require disclosures of wholesaling options: Arizona, my home state, Iowa, Indiana, Alabama, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And we'll get into those disclosures here. We've got an incredible report that Jerry Norton has put together. He does an excellent job on his channel. Let me make sure that you guys have access to this report here. We'll put it down there, wholesaleregulations.com. Arizona, Iowa, Indiana, Alabama, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania disclosures, okay? States that require you to register as a wholesaler: Oregon and Indiana. And states you cannot wholesale in: South Carolina. But we have a special guest today that will talk about a lot of the nuance to this, because my special guest today has done over 5,000 closed deals. Okay. He owns a company called Easy REI Closings. Easy REI Closings? Yes. Hold on. Let me put that up here. Where are you? Easy REI Closings. It is my friend and honor to bring him to the show, David Olds. David, how are you?
So good, man. So happy to be here.
So, regulations.
Yeah, it's happening.
Well, I mean, we definitely saw an increase from 2021 to 2025. Mm-hmm. You know, that's where we saw a lot of the different regulations come in for wholesaling. Why did that happen?
Well, here's what I love to tell people. You know, wholesaling is great. You know, we talked about this the other day. It's fantastic, whether you're rich, poor, tall, short, skinny, fat, black, white, purple, doesn't matter. Anybody can get into wholesaling with literally no money down, or no money really at all. I know, I did it. I was half a broke when I started. And, you know, you can go out, you can find a seller who's in distress or needs to sell their property very quickly. You can talk to them, put it under contract, and then find a buyer and make money. You can make really great assignment fees, $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, right? So that's great. That's why wholesaling is so amazing and why so many of us started there. However, the bad side of wholesaling is anybody can do it. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of people out there who are not good people. Let's just say that. And they take advantage of people. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons that we have these regulations, because so many people have been screwed over. You know, they put their house under contract, and, you know, people trust that when they put their house under contract with an investor, that it's going to close. And, you know, we can definitely talk about fail rate on contracts, and there are so many different reasons, but, you know, these people, they're being misled, and, you know, wholesalers they're not doing good due diligence. They're not doing it at the right price. There's just so many issues. And I think there's been so many problems that legislatures have finally said, hey, enough of this. We've got to try to get it under control. I don't think any of them have done it the right way. And we can certainly talk about states like South Carolina. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of, let's use a big word, malfeasance, right, in our industry. And you and Jerry and I talk about that a lot. You know, things need to get better. Otherwise, it's just going to continue. And laws like what's proposed in Arizona, that is going to happen someplace. And then, you know, it's just going to really disrupt our industry.
Let me ask you this. Yeah. In the states where it requires a license, have you seen your clients go out of the business? Have you seen your clients move to other states? Have you seen them just crush it once they do get licensed?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I think a lot of them just go to another state where it's easier. There are certainly states that, like we're showing here, that you have to have a license, but there's also a lot of states where you don't, where you can certainly do a lot of business. And, if we're virtual and we're getting great leads from you or however we are doing it, that's the beauty of virtual wholesaling, right? We can pop in and out of any single market in the country. But yeah, certainly some of them are licensed, some of them are getting their license. And a lot of times it is just easier to comply than to just roll the dice.
What states do you find are the best for virtual wholesaling?
The best. That's a great question. For me and everything that we're seeing with our clients, and we've done over 9,000 total transactions in the last 4 years, a lot of Sunbelt South. So Florida, Georgia, Texas, Arizona. We do have clients that do a lot of stuff in Arizona, North Carolina. Those are really big states. And one of the reasons that those states are popping so much is because there's just natural migration, people coming from the north to the south. That's not a political thing. Being in the snow sucks. It's terrible. I grew up in Boston. I don't like it. The last year I was there, Florida is great. The last time I was there, I got 4 foot of snow in one night. That's terrible. I wanted to go to Florida where it was nice and warm and I could be in my pool at Christmas time. So that creates pressure on a market, right? People are moving there. And if you're an investor, that's what you want, right? I want to buy a property that I know I can fix and resell. And because there's going to be more people coming to the market, that puts pressure on the market and that's going to raise the price, right? Because I have more people that want my property than there are properties available. And then also if I'm a landlord, and I've experienced this in Tennessee, Tennessee's a great market. I've seen this where properties I bought even 10 years ago, maybe we're renting for $395 a month. Now we're $1,300, $1,400, $1,500, depending upon, how much they're fixed up. So yeah, I want to be in a place where, there's competition for rentals and for our rehabs and for our properties.
Are some states easier because the lending laws are easier? You know what I mean? What I mean by that, not lending laws, I guess it would be the foreclosure process. I see that, Arizona is really quick, right? It's a trustee state versus a mortgage state. And there's differences there, right? People can look that up on a map and see which states are judicial versus trustee foreclosures. And I see that the hard money lenders here are very aggressive, right? Because you can get that property back quickly.
Sure.
Does that affect, the amount of wholesalers in certain markets, you think?
I think it can definitely have an effect, but more on the buyer side. It does. Like Georgia takes a little bit longer than Tennessee, but in those markets, like for instance, where I'm at, normally where I live, I'm from Chattanooga, which is yes, you do. In markets where, they can foreclose, you can evict, you can do all those things quicker. That's great, but those tend to expand and you get more competitive. And then you start to get those outlying areas. So people will start going to some of those other markets. But ultimately, investors want a good deal, right? They want a deal where they can buy it, fix it up, and make some profit, right? And they've all got different profit margins or goals. Or if you're a landlord, can I get good cash flow here, right? But I think more of it comes down to, and this is what I like to talk about, we start with the end in mind, right? So when we're on the phone and you were teaching us to talk to people and we were making cold calls, something that was very important for our acquisitions people, for them to understand is, how does my buyer actually make money here, right? Can they make money on this deal? And if they can, well, then that's a place that I want to be. So I'm a little bit less worried about like foreclosure laws and are there cash buyers? Is there activity in this market? Is there going to be somebody that wants the widget that I'm selling? And in our case, we're selling these contracts.
Yeah, I love it. I want to touch on this. This is a phenomenal report. You also have a phenomenal report that people can get at Easy REI Closings called The War on Wholesaling. This is the one, wholesaleregulations.com. This is the one that Jerry puts a lot of effort into in keeping everything up to date. And I want to touch on this in Nebraska. They talked about that in 2022. It requires a license for publicly marketing for sale and equitable interest in a contract for the purchase of real property between a property owner and a prospective purchaser. Now, the reason I bring this up is for a couple different reasons. recently, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, the Arizona Real Estate Commissioner sat down with a group of, I don't know, a few hundred investors at a RIA. And she talked about, if you're the principal on it, if you're the buyer on the purchase agreement, um, not needing a license in Arizona. Right now, they don't require a license to be able to assign the purchase agreement, but there is nuance here because there's a lot of people that are co-wholesalers. Okay. There's a lot of people that focus on just the buyer side. They focus on just doing the disposition side. Okay. And so what happens is they take my deal and they send it out to their buyers. And when they do that, if you don't have a license and you're not the buyer on the deal, they consider that brokering. Okay. So if you are just building up your co-wholesaling, or you're taking other people's deals and selling those to your cash buyers, she gave a couple of recommendations. Okay. One, you can do that if the contract is assigned to you already.
Right.
Okay. If it's assigned to you already, now you're the buyer on the contract. Now you have equitable interest. Now you can put that out there and you can market that property. But that's not what a lot of people are doing, David. That's not what a lot of people are doing. A lot of people are just, they see a deal out there, they send it to their buyer. They say, okay, this buyer wants this deal. And then they talk to us, and then we assign it to them afterwards, and then they assign it to them. And it's the wrong process.
It is.
Or unless she said, you have a license.
Yes.
Okay. The other, right? So if you have a license, then you can broker that. You could do that as a broker activity. And with that, though, that would have to go through your brokerage. Remember, real estate agents don't get paid. And this is something that is very confusing, is the broker gets paid. Right. The licensee then gets paid from their brokerage. Okay. So then it almost becomes a commission, and that goes to, you have to, all of your assignment fee would then have to go through your broker, and then your broker is going to require a lot of different disclosures and paperwork and all this other stuff. Right. So the idea there is get it assigned to you first before you market it. That's something that they're really looking at here in Arizona. The other thing that they're looking at, guys, it doesn't require, here's again, all the markets that require a license, all the states that require a license. Okay. The ones that don't, but you're dispoing deals. Okay. And you're not the primary, you're not the buyer on the deal. That a lot of the other states are going to see that as a brokerage activity, and there's going to be problems there. Okay. So this is why I say, I think everybody should get their license. So it opens up the opportunities. You can usually get it done in a month. You can go through all the classes, you can take the tests, you can get the license and do all that, and you're ready to rock and roll. And there's huge benefits to that. You can get referral fees if you want, if you have a lead and they want retail, or they want to put it on the market, or they want to hire an agent, you can refer that over to an agent and receive referral fees legally, which is fantastic. You get access to the MLS, especially if you're in non-disclosure states like Texas, and that's a huge advantage to being able to really understanding values, coming up with ARVs, being able to pull all the comps, understanding your market. That is huge, right? So I think everybody long-term, if you're serious about this business, get a license. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people, we're entrepreneurs, we're anti-school, we're anti, all of these, formal licensing and all this other stuff. I think it's nonsense. Take it serious, get a license, and then it opens it up to do all these other things. The other one, David, that was mentioned is if you have a disposition manager on your team, or an acquisition manager on your team, and they're not W-2'd. There's some agency stuff when you do get, when people are W-2'd to where you're an agent of the business and it's kind of implied, but still that gets murky. If you have an acquisition manager that's running out there for you and representing you, they want those people licensed here in Arizona. Yeah. They want your disposition manager, especially licensed in Arizona, because they're literally marketing the contract for sale. And the way that it's marketed is essentially, here's the address, here's the pictures, here's the details. Yeah. So really, 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 really interesting. When it comes to the states that don't require a license, what they're going to be looking for if you have acquisition managers and disposition managers. Now, I've seen some people, David, that they give 0.5% interest in the company, 1% interest in the company. So they're technically an owner. So when the LLC goes on the purchase agreement, they're technically, representing it as an owner, and they can do it that way. But I think it's easier if you're going to hire acquisition managers or disposition managers, have them licensed.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Brent, for years and years, I was against. We've talked about this and argued about it before. I was very against getting a license because of all the regulations and the compliance and all of the stuff. However, times have changed, right? The days where we could sort of slip through with wholesaling and, it's equitable interest and all of these things, like those days are done. Like the curtain has been pulled back on the Wizard of Oz. Everybody knows what we're doing. And I don't agree that licensing is the right answer to the problem, but it is the thing that's going to keep you in compliance, right? I think they want us licensed for, to protect sellers and do all of those types of things. And I don't know that a real estate brokerage license solves that problem, but I'm saying as far as getting wholesalers to act correctly. But, at this point where we're at, there are a lot of people that need help that traditional agents cannot help. They don't want to help because maybe it's, just a weird deal, or they don't have the buyers. They don't have all of the things. So this is the path forward. Get licensed. We do a lot of JV deals. My head of dispositions licensed, right? We have her licensed because that's just the, that's what's going to keep you out of trouble. And I have gotten the big packet from the state realtor board commission. It is not a fun thing to have to sign for and open that packet years and years ago. So yeah, we just decided, we're on board. This is what you want us to do.
What were they looking for, David? What was the packet?
So it was in our early days. And, again, when we had nothing to lose, we were a little bit like cowboys. Like I was running around and we had bandit signs out. We were doing all of the things. And, we had a couple of agents that turned us into the commission, and it was same thing, right? You need to be licensed to do this. So yeah, I just literally formed a partnership with another investor who was a broker, an actual broker. And, we put in all of our marketing that, Risco Properties was the acting broker on our deals and was a partner on that deal. So I forget the exact wording, but we had a real estate attorney draw it up for us, and that satisfied them and kind of got us out of their crosshairs.
Got it. Yeah. I'm looking at Pennsylvania. So we got the question here about Pennsylvania. Not only does Pennsylvania require you to become a licensed agent, they want you to be under a broker to lawfully assign the contract. That's right. So this is updated. So they did change this. So it's not just the disclosure. They are on this one. Thank you for correcting this. This was a slideshow that I did in 2025. So updated, Pennsylvania does require a license. So Chris, thank you so much for putting that in there. Do you know what investor fee? Cameron Miller says, this is why investor fee needs to be the new gold standard in wholesaling. Do you know what he's referring to?
Never heard of investor fee. And
Cameron, what does that mean? Oh yeah, there you go. JL the Black Superman says, what's investor fee? So Cameron, if you can give us some clarification in the comments section, that would be really, really awesome. And maybe behind the scenes, either Luke or Alejandra can pull that up and Google it and see what's going on there, or you can, David, as we're going through this. But yeah, so Pennsylvania does require a license to be able to assign. So it's right here. Define wholesaling. They attempt to assign, sell, transfer your equitable interest for a fee before you take legal title to the property. Now in Arizona, we have let me see if it's, let me find what's required here in Arizona, because I think it's really interesting. So in 2022 requires a wholesale buyer before entering into a binding agreement with the seller to provide a disclosure in writing that a buyer is a wholesaler to the seller. States if a wholesale buyer violates this disclosure requirement, the seller may cancel the contract for sale without penalty and retain any earnest money paid by the wholesale buyer. Now, in our we've always disclosed it, David, even pre 2022.
Sure.
I can't say always disclosed it. We started doing it, I don't know, maybe 19 or 20. But now what we do is we have it bold and we have them initial underneath it.
Right.
Like underneath the bold statement there. And we also put in, we're going to make a profit on this thing.
Yeah.
The
Tennessee
purpose of this is to make a profit. Yeah.
It required us to have bold language in our contracts in Tennessee. We did a full video breakdown on it, and that's okay, right? Like, again, people get hung up like, oh my God, I've got to disclose this. Sure, you have to disclose it. I'm not going to spend 30 minutes explaining to a seller how I'm going to make money on it. What I am going to explain to them, Brent, is, hey, I understand. This is what I always say. I understand, Mrs. Smith, you need to move to Arizona because your cat has psoriasis, right? 100%. How quickly do you want to move? Great. I think we can get that done. Let me get you a contract. Let's get the process started, right? That's what people want. I think the laws are very, very important and everybody should be compliant. We should be doing things the right way. But again, at the core of what we're doing here, our job, we have a special set of skills, right? Our skills are to come in here and help sellers who are losing sleep over these properties tonight.
Yep. Cameron Miller says it's how we do off-market real estate in Kentucky without it being considered wholesaling, but still move deals for profit through using buyer premiums like a auctioneer. Okay. Can somebody send Alejandro or Luke, send Cameron. Cameron can hop on here and explain this, because I think that would be awesome. If we could send them the link to be able to get in here, that would be really, really helpful. So Cameron, we'll put in the link here in the chat and you can jump on and we'll add you to the show. That would be amazing. That's what I love about these live shows, Dave. You know what I mean? They're just absolutely phenomenal for getting for getting feedback in real time, because there are, questions that need to be answered. So that's awesome.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
One question from Rio asks, will double closing be a solution to still wholesale in those states?
Depends. Depends on which state.
And attorney answer.
Yeah, well, I'm not an attorney and did not stay at a Holiday Inn last night. However, states like South Carolina have gotten very specific, and they do not want you to market the deal until you are the owner. Now, there are some workarounds, there are, but yeah, double closing would work, but you're going to need more than transactional funding. You're going to want something like a bridge loan, or I'm sure there's a fancier, more up-to-date term, but where basically you've got a loan and you have the time to close on the property, and then, you can list it and resell it. And sometimes, this is wholetailing, right? We're going to throw a coat of paint on it, cut the bushes out front, trim the tall grass, and maybe change out some carpet and then throw it back on the market. And, that's probably a little bit higher form of investing. It does come with a little bit more risk because you're going on the hook for that property. So you want to make sure that you have a real deal before you start doing that.
Yeah. And Rio, so the biggest issue that we've seen, speaking with the commissioners, is marketing the property without a license. So if you're doing a double close, that means that you're putting it out to, even if it's your private network of buyers, you're marketing that property to them before you own it without a license. Okay. So it's still going to be an issue. Oh, Cameron Miller's here. Here we go. Awesome. Great to see him. Cameron, great to see you, bud.
What's going on? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Fantastic. I'll tell you what, sometimes, I'm like, I really wish I could grow a beard. I wish I could be cool.
It's a long time.
Guys that can grow. I just can't grow a beard. I just can't do it. Like it's terrible. It grows out. It's like my neck, 100%. I could have a great neck beard, like a crazy person, but I don't know what it is. It's just DNA. So you guys are incredible.
The camera's deceptive. The camera makes it look fuller than it really is.
Yeah, yours looks great, man. Mine, I'm 2 months in and it still feels like a struggle sometimes.
Well, listen, when I was heavier, I was like, man, I wish I had a beard, because beards are the Spanx for men. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyway, Cameron, explain investor fee to us.
Yeah. So in Kentucky, you put it up there earlier that you have to have a license to market. So we used to do wholesaling, and we do a lot of fix and flipping in Kentucky. And long story short, we were trying to get ahead of this regulation because, we saw it coming. And so, have you ever heard that quote that innovation is taking two old things and putting them together, create one new, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We went to the lab a little bit. So here's what investor fee is now. Basically, what we do is we take the auctioneer world and we rob the buyer's premium, right? So are you familiar with how a buyer's premium works? Maybe
No.
we should explain. So I say that it's kind of like having sales tax on real estate. So if you went to the grocery and you spent $100, and in Kentucky, it's a 6% sales tax, right? So you spend $106. But Kroger doesn't get the $6 ultimately, right? The tax man does. So in this situation, the buyer's premium is the tax and the auctioneer is the tax man.
Got it.
So the auctioneer is getting the tax man money of 6%. So they'll go auction a house, they'll charge a 10% buyer's premium. And if it's a $100,000 house, the total price is $110,000, and $10,000 goes to the auctioneer, right?
Yep.
So really sounds a lot like wholesaling, just auctioning, right?
Yeah.
It's added to the purchase price, buyer takes that fee, seller gets net. So basically what we did is we said, well, what if we just robbed that and treated that like a wholesale fee? And so what I did is, I don't have a real estate license, but I own a brokerage. So I opened a brokerage in Kentucky by working with a local broker. And we had our acquisition guy get licensed, just like you kind of suggested earlier. Yep. And then all we started doing was going on these appointments that normally we were losing on, and saying, hey, Mr. Seller, what if we keep this real simple and we add this investor fee to the sales price, and let's just go see if investors want to pay for it. And all of a sudden our close rate went from like 20% to like 42%. So like that was a huge deal for us. And now in person, we're closing, somewhere between 60 and 70%. But the reality is more people wanted to do business with us because it was more above board. We were transacting like a broker, but still getting a fee that was like a wholesale fee when it comes to actual counting dollars, right? So what's investor fee? Investor fee is essentially the way we think that wholesaling should be done post heavy regulation.
Sure. So functionally, you're getting the seller to sign a document that says, hey, I'm going to be getting a fee on top of your price for bringing this to my private investor network.
Yep. And then
how do you know how much that is? I mean, do you put a dollar amount? Do you put a percentage amount? Like, how does that work?
Percentage. We range it from 5 to 10%.
Okay, so you go, listen, I'm going to put this out to my investor buyers, and they're going to pay me, but it's going to be between 5 and 10%. And if it comes in lower, you just adjust it and do an addendum, or what do you do?
Yep, we just adjust it. And so if we get a deal that's too tight.
Got it. This is what you were telling me about?
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yep. And okay. So, the cool thing is your position's totally different, because let's compare that to traditional wholesaling. Hey, Mr. Wholesaler, hey, Mr. Seller, I know that you want 90, best I can do 60.
Yep.
Well, compare, and then basically they either get mad or they don't, and you overpromise or you don't, right? Versus, hey, Mr. Seller, best I can do 60, but if you want to, we can throw this to our private network and see if anybody will pay this plus the premium. And then when nobody pays it because it's overpriced,
yep,
you just say, hey, the best offer we got 70. We got two choices here because we're doing this by the book. Do you want to drop price to the 70, or do you want to just go ahead and let us push this same model to the MLS and let's just get better buyers? And so what we ended up doing was it's like a Novation, but better.
Yeah.
So we got immediate access to the MLS because where we had the brokerage and the licensed acquisition guy, we just immediately push the buyer's premium to the open market and it sells. So, our dispo process just got way easier because we had the best buyers list in the world, which is the MLS.
Incredible. Incredible. So you're literally just putting it out and saying, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna put this out at a buyer premium," and then maybe you split it with them. Maybe you work something out. Like
Whatever.
this is where I would be if I were to close on this.
Yep.
If I were to buy this, you
Yep.
want more than that. So what I can do is I can put this out at a certain price and a buyer premium. So I mean, you don't have to have you have to have a license to list it. What if you didn't want to put it on the MLS? What if you just wanted to put it out to a private network?
So technically what you could do is you could get the same purchase contract that you would as a wholesaler. And of course, disclosure state by state, right? But let's say that you went ahead and got that under contract. Then what you would do is just when you market it, you would market it with the buyer's premium and you would just market it at the contract price that you actually got it at, right? So you would actually market at, if you locked it up for 90, lock it up for 90, but then just put the advertising piece of the buyer's premium like an auctioneer would. And then
that's what auction.com does, right?
Yep. Hubzoo.auction.com. That's exactly.
Yep.
So
Hubzoo, that's their I get it now.
Yeah.
Like it
but the
takes me a
difference
while
is
to figure
you're
things
not
out.
going to host an auction because
Right.
there is actual regulation to auctions, right?
Sure.
You're simply saying, hey, I'm advertising the buyer's premium alone. That's the only mechanism that you borrowed.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that. I love that strategy. So the seller's totally on board with the whole thing.
Well, what I love about it is, if we really are being honest, what industry is not
Wow.
is
This
competition
yeah.
and
Yep.
not liking lack of transparency.
Right.
So if you just integrate the licensed model, they're happy. So like we sell mostly to agents. We just opened up the whole buyer pool that normally shut off to wholesalers, right?
Right.
So that box is checked. Like our local MLS quote said, you guys are like the gold standard for off market in our mind. So like the difference is, instead of being, shunned, we're welcomed. And the other thing is that the sellers have a much more transparent narrative with you because it's 100% in line.
Of course. I mean, that's huge. So how long do you, Dominic here asks, how long do you contract with this method?
We actually will just do like an automatic 30-day renewal contract is what we do. But sometimes we'll do like, for example, we had a really high priced guy that was an off market deal in September. We just now got it under contract, but because he had nothing to lose, he just let us keep marketing it.
Right. On the MLS?
We actually kept it off the MLS because he wanted to.
Right.
So, but we ended up selling it because at the end of the day, time sells all deals, right? It may be that it's a day, it may be that it's 100 years, but time sells all deals.
Well,
sooner or later, you find
price sells all deals.
Well, to be fair though, if you had a price that was double, but you waited 100 years,
I get it. I get it. Right. Yeah. Over a certain amount of time, it's going to hit that price.
That's right.
Eventually, hopefully, unless you're in one of those towns that hasn't appreciated in
that's right
50 years or something.
But this deal was passed through 5 wholesale companies.
Sure.
Before it came to us, and we were able to sell it because we simply had a no-brainer offer that had an unlimited time frame.
I love it. I love that strategy. Do you teach this? Is there a paperwork packet people can look at? Can you do this in all states? Like, how do we get more nitty gritty with this, Cameron?
Yeah, so we're basically trying to put together how we want to teach it. It's still pretty early stages. So yes, we do. There's a website. You're
not a guru. You're not some guru out there that's like, oh, here's my whiz bang thing. I'll teach you how to do this for $15K.
No, not
on.
Yet. But what we did is we started kind of acquiring a wait list, if you will. So you could go to investorfee.com and you could join kind of the wait list. But we haven't decided how we want to disseminate this information, because to be frank, I think this is just flat out the way wholesales should operate. So to me, it's more about changing the industry than it is trying to get a guru check.
But let me ask you this though: how does it get around you marketing a property and needing a license to market your interest in it?
Well, so let's assume it's a state like Kentucky that does, right?
Yeah.
Then you aren't getting around it; you're doing it. The end of the day, what I'm showing people to do is how can you own a brokerage without owning a license, and then use your acquisition guy to do so. Or you just work with a local agent for the advertising checkbox and roll on. So, but if you
So
don't,
you do need a license to do this?
a license needs to participate in some way. But my opinion is that kind of like what you said earlier. One, I think you should just do it. I think you should just get the license, or somebody on your team should get the license, and it's that simple. But what you can do is open a brokerage without being licensed, and then just employ the licensed person. Whether it be a W-2 contract, 1099 contract, whatever the state regs need. You can still do that. Like, I own a brokerage in Georgia, Alabama, and Kentucky, and I don't have a license in any of them.
Got it. But somebody needs to be licensed for this model. I mean, if you need a license in the state to market your equitable interest, then that's what it is. But so this is still equitable interest. You're still going on as the buyer.
Depends on which model you choose, right? Model 1 was just be the agent, basically, just be the broker. Model 2 was if you use that purchase contract that you asked about, now you are advertising equitable interest. But what I would do is I would just work out something with a local agent to advertise that.
Yeah, but I mean, you're like your disposition manager would have to be licensed. The person selling your deal would have to be licensed.
Yep. Which, so to my opinion, that's just the way it should be done. Is there ways around it? Well, there's always ways around everything, right? You can squeak your way through if you want. But what I'm telling you is that agents and local MLSs respect us more and participate with us more because we don't.
Yep. I'm telling you guys, I'm just telling you, if you have somebody doing your dispo and doing your acquisition and they are representing your company, going out on appointments, negotiating deals, and or marketing your deals to sell, if they don't have a license, you're going to run into problems.
Yeah.
It just takes one deal to get in front of a judge or whatever, the real estate commissioner or whatever else. And it's going to be a problem. And I see these guys. I mean, there's literally companies that have VAs that do the dispo. You know what I mean? Like it's literally like, hey, we're a done for you thing. We have VAs that'll call. We have VAs that will negotiate your deals. We have VAs that'll sell your deals. That is all representing your company.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have somebody representing your company in an agency relationship without a license? Be careful with this, guys. I'm telling you, be very, very careful. It's not a long-term business strategy. Now, I get it. You want to run and gun and do all the stuff and be wild and get it going that way. I totally understand it. But that's the reason why we have these regulations.
Yeah.
That's the reason why these come under the microscope.
It's not a problem.
Right? David, what's your thought on all this investor fee and
Yeah, I like it. Cameron, I would have some questions. With this model, are you just taking in deals? The seller say, they want 500,000, and okay, let me throw it out there. So, like, what is the close rate on these? What have you guys seen? And how important is it for you in this model to really push them down to a number that works, or are you just taking it in and then coming back and saying, hey, wasn't able to sell it at your 500,000. I really think 120 is the right number. How much of that are you seeing in what you guys are doing? And I don't know how many people you've got doing this, or is it just you?
Yeah. So we have a team. I've got 6 W-2 staff. One, so they're all payroll. Nobody's commission only.
Okay.
And so basically, yes, we do anchor folks with pricing. But it's more similar to kind of like the traditional real estate agent, right? As far as how do you handle that process? Sure, you can take a listing at whatever price they want, even if it's double what it'll sell for, right? But at the end of the day, you're going to want to do something that's not wasting your time. So we definitely anchor. We definitely set expectations, which the good thing is you can kind of use that wholesale offer as a natural anchor, right? Hey, this is the cash price where this gets this done, and we can have this done in a week or two. So, you're naturally using that as an anchor anyways. The good news is our fallout rate is extremely low. Why? Because we have essentially indefinite time as long as we do a really good job with customer service, and we have the ability to pivot to the MLS when applicable. So really there's not really much of a better offer. We kind of took, a lot of people love a lot of the Hormozy stuff, and, we kind of took that to heart as how can we make a no-brainer offer? Right. Like I tell the story all the time when I was doing this myself, and I was literally going into your living room and being like, here's our cash offer. Yeah, it sucks. I agree. Please tell me what I got to do better. Just I did everything but grovel, and I probably groveled. But I would just do it over and over and over again to say, look, Mr. Seller, like, help me figure this out to where when I walk into the next house, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I just did that for a couple of years until we did enough iterations where people started saying, the only reason I would do this is because I don't trust you, right? Like, it's just more of like I'm paranoid because I'm not hearing that this is a normal thing. There's got to be a catch.
Yeah.
When I started hearing, oh, there's got to be a catch, I thought, okay, now we're on to something. Now I can just make sure you trust me.
Okay. Help me with the mechanics a little bit. So we know wholesaling, fastest cash. Novations, 190, 120 days, right? Depending on the market and how you price it. Are you quicker than a novation, longer than a novation? What are you seeing on the contracts that are closing as your time from contract to close?
So it would probably be somewhere in the middle because we've got plenty that are closing in 30 days or less. I would say average 30 days or less.
Nice.
But then we've got some where even though we anchored, they still crept up. And now you're more similar to the novation type period. Now, the good news is we're a facilitator. So like where the novation may cause a little bit of pause and what's the next step, it takes a little bit longer to do this, do that, this extra paperwork. We kind of cut out that arm of it, right? So, we've just got us helping facilitate. So like the actual paperwork trail at least cuts time in half. Now it's just pricing and marketability. So I would say we're probably somewhere in the middle, but I would say the vast majority are, once you get under contract, 60 days or less.
Okay. So, and I'm just quizzing you because I know you and I talked maybe a year or so ago, yes, but I've slept since then. So I'm going to grill you a little bit here. So, okay. So great. So we've got it under contract. Now we move into the marketing phase, and you're saying I can market it to my email list. I can put it on Investor Lift, Investor Base. I can use all of the normal marketing channels that I use. I just need to disclose, the price is $120,000 plus a
buyer's premium.
Buyer's premium, right? I want to use the right words here, of 10%.
Yep.
So I'm doing all of my normal marketing, or even simultaneously, I put it on MLS and I disclose that the same way.
Yep, you can do it the same way. So let me actually see, just out of curiosity, if we have one on the MLS right now.
Isn't that confusing to cash buyers, though? You're like, oh, look at this deal. It's at 120, but it's also whatever.
Yeah.
20
plus 5, whatever.
25,000 fee or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, they're like, no, it says 120. I want to buy it for 120. You're like, no, look at the fine print that says it's 120 plus our buyer premium.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean?
Your dispo guy's got to have a little bit of training. And what we've done is we've just pre-built these disclosures. So, we've got really clean language at the beginning of the listing remarks that's like in your face, bold, hey, this is what this is. And then we've got documents where when people request, we send them the document. Here's an explainer of what the buyer's premium works and why. Here's how you do the math. Here's a calculator. So we've just processed that part really, really well so that, my dispo guy basically is just kind of like hitting the record button and being like, this is why this is this way. And this is how you do it. Right. So because the good news is there's already history for it in auctioneering. So, the market has already experienced it in some way so that you can
kinda like, you know what I mean? Like there's states that, there's auctions of all sorts of things. I talked to Travis out in West Virginia, and this is very common out there. There's actually a lot of auctions for real estate in that area. So the buyers are used to that. But in Arizona, you put out a deal and then you tell them, oh no, there's a buyer premium on top of it. And they're like, oh, well, you said that the price was this. And you know what I mean? And so I think that there would have to be a total education on the entire cash buyer database that we would have that goes, this is what it's the contracted at, but this is what the total price is. And then from there, the problem I would have with this, or the challenge that I would have, Cameron, is if you lock in a certain percentage with the seller, what happens if somebody wants to bid up the total price of this deal because they really want this deal? Do you have to go back to the seller and go, hey, I'm actually making 18% on this as opposed to 10?
Yeah, no, you just don't change the buyer's premium. Once you set it, it's agreed upon. So, they're gonna, if you said 100 plus 10%, and you were to get 110 plus the 10% because somebody bid the price up, then the seller is netting that 110.
No, I understand that they're netting what they're netting. It's just an upside. Sometimes we'll put a deal out and we think it's a great deal and we get less. And then sometimes we put a deal out and it goes way more than we ever expected. Right?
Yep. Yeah. So,
so
what we do in those situations, because most of the time, right? Like most of the time you're like, hey, this has potential to go for a bid war or something like that. So typically those are your best deals, right? Like you're going to be able to price something, it was priced right, and the multiple people are going to fight over because it was priced right, right? So what we would do in that situation is, because we are a cash buyer, those are typically the deals you could have locked up at a wholesale price anyways. So you lock them up, and then what you do is you actually turn around and you are the seller and you market it with the buyer's premium anyways at an increased price. So I'll give you an example. We just locked up one this week for $75,000. We know that it'll easily sell for $100,000. And what we're going to do is then turn around and market our $100,000 contract plus a 10% buyer's premium on top of it. So the ones that we know that are extra beefy, which is typically what you're talking about, we're going to lock those up like a wholesaler would, and then we're going to go advertise it at the increased rate anyways. And actually, we're going to be able to basically get paid on our acquisition, the wholesale fee, and also the buyer's premium. So we're going to get paid twice out of that transaction.
And is that disclosed to the seller? Like how does that
work? Because at the end of the day, those are typically the people that are easiest to work with. So, a lot of times those are the guys that you're like, hey, I can give you this number. And they say, well, can you do 10 more? And you say, yes. And then you say, hey, here's what our process is. We have this, we actually have something called a buyer's club. That's what we call our network. So we say, hey, we have this buyer's club. We're going to market this increase to try to sell it before we buy it to the buyer's club. You good with that? Yep. Moving on. But to be fair, everything we contract, I don't contract unless I'm willing to close on it. So that is a little bit of a caveat where I run a local model, not a nationwide model. Everything I lock up that's going to be in that descriptor, I'm willing to buy.
Yeah, got it. We got some questions here, and then I've got a bunch in my mind. So Daniel Quijano, do you offer tossing it on the MLS out of the gate, or do you wait until the cash fails?
If we sift through the information and decide, hey, this is best to go straight to the MLS, no matter what, we'll go straight to the MLS and we'll just say, hey, Mr. Seller, this is what I would do if I were you. Here is the cash price, because we still want to use it as an anchor. We don't want unrealistic pricing. So we're still going to give them that cash, but we're not going to wait for the cash to fail. What we typically do is we say, hey, let's market this privately. And then on day 15, how do you feel if you don't get what you want, that we market it publicly?
Yep.
And we just use that language because it's simple. Public is MLS, private is our buyer's club, right? Or our email list, whatever you want to call it. So we actually kind of like preset that we're going to the MLS. It's almost just like an understanding whenever we pitch it.
Doors and Deeds says, I'm assuming there is info in this with closing costs and who is paying.
Yep. It's always going to be on the purchase contract that comes through.
Okay. Got it. And then somebody asked, what's the difference between an investor fee and an option agreement?
Yeah. So investor fee is, you are in more of that broker role. So you're not actually getting the interest to assign that contract like you would with an option agreement. So an option agreement, you're locking up an option to make the purchase. If you're going straight with the investor fee agreement, you're not even doing that at all. So you're not on the hook for anything. You're going straight and saying, hey, I'm marketing this thing. This is all I'm doing with this thing. I'm not looking to buy it. I'm looking to market this and make a spread with a buyer's premium.
Do you ever go in and just do assignments, just traditional wholesale? I mean, if you have somebody that's licensed and you need a license in Kentucky, why not just assign these? Like, why go through all of this extra steps with the seller if you could just, they want 80? Yeah, I can give them 80. Great. I'm going to put it out to my cash buyer database at 95, get an assignment fee for 15 and just move on.
Yeah, those we still will do, right? Like the one I just described that we locked it up for 70 and we're going to market it for 100, right? So we will still do those. The problem is whenever you're a wholesaler, your typical conversion rates are around 20%. What about the other 80%? Well, the other 80% was too high. That's why you didn't lock it up. So what we do is we leverage the other 80%. That's
so you're
what
not saying this replaces assignments. This is just another tool in the toolbox to lock up. Yeah, David, he's right between basically a novation and an assignment.
Right. Same way we pitch innovations, right? Hey, Brent, I got here's my offer. Oh, really? You really can't take that? Well, I do have this other program. So yeah, I guess I get that. I don't love the, capping my assignment fee because sometimes you just don't know. But if I can, normally I get 2 out of 10. Now I'm getting 3 or 4. Yeah, I get that. Now, when we get to,
just to be clear, like you don't have to cap it, right? You still do that whenever it's uncapped. So you can have one of two options. One, lock it up still and move it like normal. You don't have to not do the other. Right?
Yeah, no, but I'm saying if we do the
just
buyer.
one. Yeah. Right. Now the other option is just increase your percentage.
Yeah.
That's it. If you got a killer deal, don't do 10, do 15. If you don't like 15, do 40. Doesn't matter.
Okay. So let's move into more of my area, the closing. So is this like a novation where the end buyer is going to, sign a new contract with the seller, or is the title company going to take this underlying contract that you have with the buyer premium and do it like an assignment? Like how does that work? How would my team close this?
So if like Brent described earlier, what happens whenever a brokerage absorbs a commission, it's going to happen just like that. This is going to get paid out as a line item to the brokerage. And then that money is going to be disseminated however you do with your internal team, right? So whether you pay your acquisition guy, whatever, but it's going to go to the brokerage that you own or to the licensee that is running this investor fee model. And it's actually way simpler. There's no memorandum needed. There's no assignment fee line item, which means you don't freak out banks. We routinely sell to FHA buyers because there's nothing to discuss there.
Okay. And it's
no flip rules, no anti-90-day flip rules.
The realtor fee the brokerage fee is on the seller side, not the buyer side.
Yeah. So what happens is on the HUD, you'll see a charge on the buyer side, which is the buyer's premium, and then the commission.
Oh, the buyer's. And banks are paying 10%, 12%, 15%?
As long as it appraises, yeah. So the good news is it's considered a fee. It's not considered like a assignment, right? So it'd be like the same as a novation. It's considered a lien release, right?
But in novation, it's on the seller side. That's why the bank doesn't care.
Well, on the HUD, it's on both because the seller still pays it, but the buyer's charged for it. So it looks like a net zero.
Okay. But then it's got to show up as a fee on the buyer side.
Yep, on each side, and then it's a net zero from the.
Well, that's where I would think that conventional lenders, right?
Yeah, but again, like a bank who has done they auction property if they have to take it, right? So they're pretty familiar with auction.com, and they're pretty familiar with Zome and Hubzu and Courthouse Steps if they ever do integrate it. But it's like a ball that already has case study, right? It's like you already have case study to go back to versus an assignment fee gets you a little bit shady, A lot of banks can do that.
I think auction.com and Hubzu and the Courthouse Steps, those are cash buyers. I bought from Hubzu and auction.com plenty of times, and they're also conveying on a special warranty deed. So a little bit different. I don't think that you're getting bank finance.
But here's what I'll tell you is we've never had one turned down by a bank.
That's awesome. I'd love to jump on another call and look at some of those HUDs. I think that's great.
So let's put a bow on this. Can you break down what you mean by the buyer's premium?
Yep. So the buyer's premium is a fee to the transaction that is charged as part of the marketing. So the fee being a set percentage, typically, let's say it's 10%, the buyer's premium is going to be added to the offer price to create the total contract price is the language that's used. So if you offer $100,000 and it was marketed that a 10% buyer's premium is charged to this transaction, then the new price becomes 100 plus 10%, which is $110,000, which is why the banks fund it, because it becomes a total contract price, not an offer price. And now the difference between, or the amount that is equal to the buyer's premium is what your spread is.
Awesome.
Yeah, I definitely think there's probably a place for this on, certain deals where assignment's not viable.
Yeah, it's the other 80%. Now, what I've done is I've preferred it for the 100%. And the reason is because it makes my whole business streamlined. But I understand the argument of, hey, what about the sweet deals? Well, the sweet deals we just buy.
You just buy them. Yeah, I get it. Yep. Awesome. Investorfee.com.
Yep.
Check it out, guys. Cameron Miller, thanks for joining us, brother.
Appreciate
Good
you.
Awesome. David, I wanted to look at the craziness going on, the bill that is being, I don't even know if it's going to be presented, but it is a bill that Arizona, they're somebody's submitting or whatever. I don't think it gets to the point where it actually gets actually talked about or gets to the floor. Like, guys, you have to understand, and I didn't understand this until I talked to local government. Like, there's a lot of bills throughout the year. There's a lot of bills that people write up. They can, the different people in the government can write up all sorts of different bills. Doesn't mean that it meets the floor. Doesn't mean that it gets voted on. So I think everybody goes, oh my gosh, this is sweeping change that's going to happen. And this is what's going, all these things. There are so many things that have to get done in a local market or in a statewide, that there's only a certain amount of time and there's only a certain amount of priorities. And then who's in charge? Is it the left or the right? Is it bipartisan, or is it something that everybody can get behind, or is it something that, is very restrictive and adds more regulation? Right. And so this new one, the AZ 2486 is really interesting, right? One, they just don't want anybody that owns, they want to get rid of investors, essentially, which is absolutely silly. They want to keep a restriction on let me see if it's on here. Hold on. He doesn't have it on here. Basically, they want to have a restriction on how many houses you can buy a year. They only want you to be able to buy at 82% of fair market value, which is the as-is value, which makes no sense. What is that based off of?
Calculate that.
Is that based off of the tax assessor value? Is it based off of an appraisal? Like, great. 82% of as is. We buy properties at as is value. That's what we lock them up at. 82% would be even significantly more than that. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. They want there to be licenses. They want the escrow and title company to be the enforcers of all this. So it's absolutely insane. I looked through the bill. It's a few pages long, and Jerry's posted about it. I got a bunch of texts and a bunch of DMs about it. What I would say is, let's see if it even gets presented. And if it does, let's see if it even gets voted on. But it puts extreme restrictions on your constitutional right for property rights.
From the seller and the buyer. Yeah. We can literally go through this bold spot by, line by line. There's so many problems here. And I think you're right, and I don't even know if it's, I certainly think Republican administrations are more amenable to everything that we're doing. But the bad thing, and this is why Jerry talks about us having some type of representation and lobby out there, and I do think we need it if we could ever as a community get our act together. But we're like the easiest pinata for every side to beat. We're the bad real estate investor, right? So I feel like everybody gets points for being, like Trump just to pass or did this executive order about institutional buyers who own 0.4% of the houses in the market, right? It's just talking, and it makes people feel good that somebody's doing something. But yeah, there's so many problems with that. If you pull it back up, like you who's going to define what the as-is value is? Like, who's going to do that? Like, I had a problem with an attorney one time who told my seller, you shouldn't be selling it for this amount. And my seller was going to back out. And I shot out of my office because it was in Chattanooga down to the title company. I'm like, dude, your job is to prepare paperwork. You're not an accountant. You're not an appraiser. Have you looked at this house? Have you pulled it up? Have you driven by? Have you seen the inside? How do you know what the condition of this property is. So there's not one attorney that owns a title company in Arizona that's going to say this is cool, because they don't want to go off the hook. And now you're going to make them be the enforcement arm. Stupid. It's dumb. Like they're just not going to do this.
Guys, and just as a reminder, if you'll put it in the chat, who determines value in a real estate deal? Will somebody put that in the chat? Put your response in the chat.
Yeah.
Because I think that is really telling. Who determines value in a real estate transaction? Love to see your guys' response there. By the way, if you are getting value out of these live shows, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and that really helps it all out. Everybody gets it. Hayden gets it. Michael gets it. Crowd Capital gets it. Oh, it's the buyer.
Yeah.
It's the buyer. A ready, willing, and able buyer. It's not appraisers. It's not the bank. It's not the government. It's not the real estate agent. It's certainly not the seller. It is the buyer every single time. So when you're going and you're making an offer, this is something that we say to every single property owner that we talk to, every appointment we go on, is we'll never tell you what you should sell your house for. We'll only tell you what we can buy it for.
Right.
Guys, use that language. That language is really, really, really important. Okay. There you go. Everybody gets it. You guys are on top of it. Absolutely incredible. Now listen, Dave, you have 10 wholesaling trends for 2026.
I do.
And I'll go through that. We did a podcast, guys, a phenomenal podcast, be coming out next week, but we'll give you a little bit of preview on this because I think this is really important. So David has the unique ability, the unique opportunity to look at thousands of deals a year. His company, Easy REI Closings, does all the transaction coordination. You get a deal, you lock it up, you turn it over to them, they get it through the finish line. It's incredible. Remember, in your business, there's income producing activities and there's income servicing activities. If you focus on income producing activities, you win, and you win faster and you make more money. If you focus on income servicing, then it's going to slow everything down because you will be busy. You won't be productive. You'll be watching a file and going through the paperwork as opposed to being on the phone or on an appointment with a property owner or with another investor. So knock it off, be a pro, use a transaction coordination company. If you don't have somebody on your staff that is doing it all the time, which I know most people don't, it's right here. EasyREIClosings.com.
We can do it.
Trusted for years and years and years. Not only that, what you've done, what is it? $617 million in real estate closed, $67 million plus in assignment fees.
Yep. Assignments and novations
has run through this company.
Yeah. We do a lot.
Okay.
You've seen a thing or two, like the insurance commercial.
So trend number one, contracting a house cheap will not save a bad location.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
If the markets aren't moving, you ain't selling that deal.
Yeah. We talked about it earlier. Who is going to buy this deal? If you are in a town of 2,000 people, again, will everything sell at the right price? And if you leave it there long enough, for sure. Right. So let's get that out of the way. Right. I will, for $1, this barn that you can see through that's tilting, it will sell. Right. But what is our goal? Right. We want to run a high speed wholesale company. We want checks. Right. Every single person who's watching this, right, put it in the chat. Was your goal this year to do more deals? Was your goal this year to make more money? Great. Well, I am telling you, stay out of rural areas. This is my marching mantra for this year. Get out of the rural areas. You have an astronomically high rate of failure there. So a town of 2,000.
How high a failure?
58%.
I would say 95%.
I would say a lot higher. Our data, and I know she's watching this, but my COO, my partner, Heather Anderson, she pulled all of this data, and we're probably going to make it available. Your podcast was the first place that we talked about it. Yep. But after doing 9,000 files and thousands of files last year, She took that data and distilled it down. And we can tell you what are the good states, what are the bad states, where is stuff going to die, what is the likelihood that this deal is going to actually close, right? And now we can make decisions based on the data, not our feels, right?
It's got to be price point though, right, David? I mean, it's got to be properties under 100,000 in the middle of nowhere.
Well, here's what I do, Brent. If you
I don't want to just say bad location. I don't want to just say
right.
rural markets, because then it comes up. What does that mean?
Well,
so there's got to be a price point, and there's got to be a population or something that we can work off of.
Here's what happens when I would get these calls when we were running Nationwide Property Liquidators, one of the biggest wholesaling companies in the country. These deals would come in, and I'd be like, my acquisitions guy would come in. I'm like, bro, we don't want this deal. There's 2,000 people there. It doesn't matter. Well, what's the lowest price? I'm like, well, if it's 40, offer 20. Like, I don't want the deal. I'm going to make it so stupid cheap. I'm embarrassed for them to even make that offer, because now maybe, this city of 2,000 or town of 2,000 people, somebody will drive from Minneapolis 80 miles over there to buy it because it's ridiculously cheap.
But the leads are cheap, David. I go on Facebook and Instagram, and there's really charming people that have ads that are like $50 a lead, $25 a lead. These leads are guaranteed to get deals. Like, that's what I want. I don't have a big budget, and I don't want to be on the phone all day. I just want to get inbound leads for super cheap, lock these deals up, and maybe one of them closes. I mean, the ROI is great.
Yeah. You have a hobby. You like talking to people, which is great. You should like talking to people, but all that work you did, you figured out an ad, you posted it, you bought some cheap leads, you did all that stuff. You talked to the seller, you talked them into selling, which probably wasn't that hard because nobody else is calling them. And you underwrote it, and you ran it through PropWire, and you did all of these things, and you put it under contract. Congratulations, you got a deal. Now what? Now what? How do you turn that contract into money? Again, I'm not saying it's a 0% chance. I'm just saying I would much rather talk to one person and pay maybe a little bit more for that lead in Tennessee or Florida, right? Instead of having to go through 30 leads, which honestly, at the end of the day, I'll bet you it's going to cost you the same amount of money. And I'm going to get my check a lot quicker in some of these other markets. So my daddy taught me, work smart, not hard, right? I'm not looking for practice, right? If you want practice, get cheap leads all day long until you feel comfortable on the phone. But you can also call Zillow for sale by owners. There are plenty of other ways to get practice instead of spending your hard-earned money. So yeah, 100%. You can buy $14 leads. You can run, I can have you run nationwide PPC for me, and I'll get stuff in Nebraska, right? Where there's a pond, an outhouse, a frog, and a guppy with 3 legs, right? Or a guppy and a frog with 3 legs, whatever it is. But who's going to buy it? Right. And if you have a dispo team, you're literally asking them to drag a bag of bricks up the hill. And even if if you're listening and me and Brent are your dispo people, the best in the country, how long are we going to work those deals before we're just like, F this, I'm out of here. This is stupid. I'm not making any money.
Cheap leads create more contracts that don't close.
That's right.
That's number 2 on this, guys.
Yeah.
Cheap leads create more contracts that don't close. But I want proof of concept, David. I want to go, and I don't care where it's at. I just want to make a little bit of money in wholesaling so that I get proof of concept, so that I could keep this energy going, keep the momentum going. So I'll buy some cheap leads. I'll go through them. It's practice, right?
Is it momentum though? Because how good are you going to feel? Right? You locked
canceling a deal.
You locked up 4 contracts, and now you're going to work your butt off trying to sell these things. And, you're getting offers that are, $4,000, $5,000 less than what you're under contract for, because you're in this little town of, we did one in Anderson, Alabama. I think we talked about it the other day. And every single person in that town of 3,000 people had driven by this house. We weren't bringing anything new. We were just at the seller's price, and we added $10,000 on top of it. Shocking that it didn't sell. Right. So yeah, it's just, I'm just telling you. And we've done 9,000 files. I'll put our data up against anybody's. It's, the odds are that deal is not going to sell, and you're going to waste your time. And then what? Right? Brent, you and me have had an amazing life. Certainly you even better than mine, but a life that I don't deserve on most days. Right? But it's because deals closed. Right? That's why. So that's what I want for you guys. There's plenty of deals for all of us. None of us can possibly do all the deals out there. I want you closing deals and getting checks. That's why I'm so passionate about this.
Listen, I understand both sides of that. I really do, David, because, if we don't have a big budget, we can't spend much money, but we want shots at the hoop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We want to take the shots. We want to get better. We want to talk to more sellers. We want people that actually want to sell.
Sure.
And you find that in the rural markets. And if I have to cancel a few to get one, I've never had, like, what is it? 86% of Americans have never had a 5-figure check in their life, right? So something like that. So, I mean, this is my shot at like 10K. I might be able to get 10K out of a deal. It cost me $200. Like it makes sense. And I understand that. I understand that side of things. It's just what David's saying is there's going to be more deals that fall out.
Yeah. And
there's going to be more deals that fall out. And it's not a great long-term business practice.
It's not. But listen, we have friends, Jen and Joe, right? They're really great at going into yard sale groups and making posts, right? There are definitely low-cost ways that you can do this, but just do it in a better market, right? They're just better place if you're going to spend that energy. And you can 100% go get deals with no money out of pocket. It's going to take you a little bit longer, right? Everything is like the scales of justice, time and money. But my thing is what I'm telling you is go do it in Volusia County, Florida, where there are a lot of buyers and there's a lot of activity. Instead of, it's like this quick sugar high because I'm in rural Wisconsin and I got somebody to agree to a contract. That's great. I get this immediate adrenaline rush, but I promise you the rush of selling that deal and getting a wire into your account is going to be a lot better.
Interesting. This is a national stat that I saw as well, but this is something that's really interesting. I saw that in December, 16% of buyers walked away from the deal that they had under contract nationwide. Okay. Yeah. It was like 40,000 plus buyers just backed out. They're just like, no, I'm not going to do it. And you have on here, buyers walk away faster than they used to.
Sure do. Yeah. Well, there's just less
what's going on.
There's less forgiveness in the market, right? A couple of years ago when things were bonkers and bananas, right? Guys were just buying stuff because they knew it was going to appreciate in the next 3 months, 20 grand over what it was today. So now buyers are getting a little more careful. And I do think that's going to change. And we can talk about the market this year and where I think it's heading. But now, right now, when these buyers are going through and they're doing their due diligence and they walk through, they're like, man, I'll buy this, but those holes in the wall or that, stopped up toilet or that bad sewer pipe, God, that's going to cost me a little more money. So they're less forgiving on those types of repairs. So I think that's a lot of it. So as a wholesaler, right, as a marketer, we need to make sure that we are, fully disclosing everything up front, right? Because we don't want to put something on the contract, get a buyer, and then boom, at the last minute, they back out. And now, we're Cinderella at midnight. We don't have time to market it to somebody else. So yeah, 100% good marketing, good disclosure. We want to make sure that we are doing as much as we possibly can, from day one when we're presenting this to buyers.
I mean, if we're getting $5,000 non-refundable earnest from our buyers,
sure,
that should protect us somewhat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I do that. I tell my buyers, do your inspections before we go into contract. Right. I don't want to, I don't do the New Western thing or Net Zero or any of these other people who are like, yeah, let me contract it and then I'm going to do my inspection and then I'll put the money down. Because to me, I just feel like you're tying up my deal. So here's what I tell buyers is, hey, listen, this is a very hot deal. I've got multiple buyers interested. If you want to lock it up and put down your EMD today, fantastic. If you want to go to a showing and take a look at the property and do your inspection, bring your contractor, bring your emotional support dog, bring whoever you want with you. But here's the danger. You all are going to come out and start making offers, and this is how the prices get bid up. So this is a choose your own adventure. I'm happy to do it any way that you want. But, if we lock it up and it's a non-refundable EMD, great. This is where we're at. If you want to go, test it out and bid against other people, that's cool too.
Guys, listen to this. And somebody take notes on this if you can. I'll go slow with it. How about this? Top 10 markets where the contracts most often die. Top 10 markets where there's more cancellations of agreements than the other markets. Then I'll give you the top 10 best markets. So we'll go worst and then best.
So if you're in these markets, pay attention.
if you're in these markets, tighten up your processes. Make sure that you are really aggressive with your pricing, really, really dialed in with comparables, really dialed in with the title companies, closing attorneys that you work with, really dialed in with communication with the seller and the buyer. Listen to this: North Carolina, Georgia. These are the worst. These are where more deals fall out than anywhere else. Top 10 states. First one, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Ooh. Now let me break that down real quick. North Carolina. Rural and eastern areas show thin buyer pools, long timelines, and frequent contract expirations. Metro areas perform significantly better in North Carolina. In Georgia, outside of Metro Atlanta, buyer density drops sharply. Small towns and rural areas consistently underperform. Florida, Panhandle and rural North Florida struggle due to weak investor liquidity, insurance issues, and buyer sensitivity. Tennessee, deep rural areas show sparse comps, title complexity, and slow exits. South Carolina, outside of Charleston and Columbia, buyer activity drops, rehab heavy inventory, and slow rehabs. Alabama, small towns suffer from limited buyer pools and reliance on single buyers. Arkansas, rural markets show high title complexity, estate issues, and weak resale demand. Mississippi, rural and secondary markets struggle with low liquidity and long timelines. Louisiana, secondary markets show limited investor competition and slow resale velocity. And Pennsylvania, outside of Philly and Pittsburgh, aging housing stock and weak buyer demand increase cancellations.
What's the theme there?
Ooh.
What's the theme?
I think we know what the theme is.
Yeah, dude. It's
if you're not in a major market in those 10 states, it's a fist fight.
It is. And and this, I would love to take credit for this, but this is Heather's report. She pulled all the data, but we literally had AI go through thousands of data points. And this is what it came up with, right? It's a theme over and over and over again. And business has changed. Business, remember 3-4 years ago after COVID, it was the wild, wild west. We were on 3% interest, 2% interest, whatever it was. And people would buy anything because there was so much demand. They would just get anything they could get their hands on because they wanted to be in the game. Well, those days are over. I'm here to tell you, we may get back. I don't think we're going to get to 3%, but I do think we have a better market coming. And yeah, rural is just not the place to be. It's just not.
But by the way, you do have in the top ones, you do have in the top 10, you do have 4 states in the top 10 that were both in the top in the top worst and the top best.
That's true. That's true.
And that is in the major markets. That's what you're saying, because the top 10 states where contracts consistently close: Texas, Florida, Georgia, California, Arizona, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio, Tennessee, and Pennsylvania. So the crossover there is Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Pennsylvania. That's where in those 4 states, make sure that you're in the major markets. And let's talk about why they're strong. Texas, strong buyer depth across major metros and suburbs, multiple exit options. Buyers tolerate smaller spreads and move quickly. Florida performs well in suburban growth corridors, dense population, and year-round investor demand. Rural Florida and Panhandle underperform. Georgia, strong performance in metro Atlanta and commuter areas. Active investor ecosystem. Rural Georgia consistently struggles. California works in population centers, high buyer density and higher ARVs absorb mistakes. Remote and rural California does underperform. Arizona, Phoenix Metro shows strong buyer consistency. predictable rehabs, and steady investor demand. I could say that again. Illinois, Chicago, and dense suburbs perform well. Strong rental demand and repeat buyer activity. Rural Illinois underperforms. Wisconsin, Milwaukee area shows steady, low drama closings. Buyers value speed and certainty over large spreads. Ohio, selective success in urban corridors. Cleveland, Toledo are areas to work. Rural Ohio struggles. Tennessee, metro adjacent areas perform best. Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga corridors show deep buyer activity, but deep rural Tennessee underperforms. And Pennsylvania, Philly, metro performs well, lower volume, but higher quality deals. Outside of that is outside of those major metros struggle. Our highest assignment revenue comes from markets with buyer depth, not from markets with the cheapest properties or leads.
Yep. That's it. It's a very common theme. So let's really talk about when we say metro. So if you were, I'm not saying this, if I was to start marketing tomorrow, I would not maybe go to Charlotte. But what I am going to do, right, is I want all those secondary little cities that are right around it. That's where I want to be, because everybody and their brother is marketing to Charlotte, right? Because that's, one of the biggest cities. So I want to be, and our clients and, the people that we work with, our deal partners, this is what I tell them. Listen, if somebody would do a deal in Charlotte, they will drive 12 miles to Gastonia to do a deal. They're not going to drive 80 miles to buy land on the side of a mountain that won't perk and nobody can do anything with it. So congratulations, you put that land under contract. Best of luck, right? Yep. It's just the odds of you moving that and turning that contract into a check are, as good as me beating my head against this wall and not having a headache when I'm done, right? It's just super low probability. And that's what we want, right? We are investing here, but we want to play the odds. I want to put myself in and my team in the best position I can, right? Because these things all cost money, whether it's costing you $50 a lead or $200 a lead, they're still costing money, right? And all of our softwares and all of the things, right? So let's focus on areas where we can actually do deals, because the nationwide fallout on contracts, Brent, is 50%.
Is this what I know that you're like really, really close with Robert at Investor Lift, right? Yeah. I think you got the 11 out of 10 tattoo somewhere on your body.
I do.
Right?
You've been on the podcast, yeah.
There it is. And so is he saying the same thing? Is he saying, hey, listen, Dispo, the best buyers are going to be in the major markets?
Yeah, 100%. The 50% is not from him. That's from First American Title Insurance Company.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Is he echoing the same? Is he saying the same thing?
Yeah. If Robert will sometimes pull up a map of where all the activity is, and it's in the big metros, like 100%. That's where deals are happening. And that's where you're seeing, the most professional wholesalers, the guys who are doing Nick Perry, the guys who are doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, they're really focusing there. And if they do get something that's moderately rural, they'll take a shot at an ovation. But again, the closer you can be, think about it this way. Who is going to buy this property, right? Because this property lives on after the day of closing. After I get my check, like the property didn't just poof, go away. Now it's somebody else's deal, right? So I have to think, okay, for my buyer to put out real money, this is $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of real money that's going to get wired to the title company, right? Nobody's going to put that kind of money out if they can't figure out how they make a return on that investment, right? They have to make profit. So if I'm selling this to a rehabber, he's thinking, great, okay, first, what's the market doing? How long am I going to have to hold this deal? Do I want to buy an $800,000 house where somebody has to get a jumbo loan on it and my buyer pool is really small? No. All the serious guys that I know are looking at that kind of middle class, blue collar, whatever the median price range is in your area. And you can find that in 30 seconds on Google. But they want to be there and below because they want where the most people are going to be able to afford this type of property. So, okay, so back to my rehabber, right? If I'm going to sell this to a rehabber, he's got to be thinking, great, how much is this going to cost to rehab? How long is it going to take me to sell this? What's my days on market going to be? And is somebody going to buy it? Who's going to buy it?
Yep.
Am I in a town? Is there anybody moving to the town of 2,000 people? And I'm using that as an extreme example. Or is it Gastonia, where Charlotte is just growing year over year over year and people need good housing? Same thing. If it's going to be a landlord, who's going to rent this property? Is Amazon and Volkswagen coming to Chattanooga bringing 20,000 jobs? And is there going to be a boom? Great. That's where I want to be investing. That's where I have the highest likelihood of not only selling my deal, but selling it fast and selling it for these higher assignment fees. Simple. It's not complicated. This is Forrest Gump stupid.
I love it. David Olds, thanks for joining us today. David and I are about to go to lunch here after the show, so I'll let you get ready for that and come on over to the office because you're in Phoenix. Thanks for being here. Easy REI closings.
All right. See you in a bit.
See you, David. So let's wrap this up. Let's look at all these. Add Pennsylvania to this list, guys. So that let's count these: Illinois, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Virginia, Michigan, North Dakota, Arkansas, Connecticut, Mississippi, Pennsylvania. 11 states out of 50 require a real estate license to assign deals to wholesale. Okay? 11 states out of 50. The other ones, Arizona, Iowa, Indiana, Alabama, Wisconsin, require disclosures. And there's some nuance to it, so make sure that you download, go to wholesaleregulations.com. If you're in certain areas, it breaks it all down and tells you exactly what is required in those states for disclosure. So make sure that you check that out. So that's where were we at? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 states. Oregon and Indiana requires you to register. That's 18 states. And then South Carolina is just bananas. South Carolina is nuts. They're just, you have to have a license to wholesale there, but if you have a license, you can't wholesale there. So it's whatever. So, I mean, listen, it's less than half of the states require that have regulations for wholesale real estate, which is interesting. But I think it's a smart, guys, again, I think it's a smart idea to have a license. If you have acquisitions and they're representing you, they have to be licensed. In Arizona, the commissioner literally told us that if you are doing a dispo model and you're not getting it assigned to you first or a JV agreement, if you're just blasting out deals willy-nilly, I get it. That's how a lot of people do it. You know, that's how a lot of people are taught. But if you're doing that, you're essentially you're marketing property that you don't have equitable interest in. And so that could be a problem for you. Get a license. If you're going to be dispoing, get a license. If you're going to hire acquisition managers, make sure they're licensed. If they are overseas and they don't have a license, it could be a problem. Will it be? I don't know. It's your life. But what I do know is you make a bunch of money in this business. You get to the point where you're doing 7 figures. You get to the point where you're getting 6 figures a month plus. People start looking at you. People start lawsuits, investigations, all sorts of different things could come your way. So protect yourself. Like use this as a guide that just goes, okay, you know what? I'm only going to hire people that have a license as acquisition. If I'm going to be selling other people's deals, I'm going to either have it assigned to me, have a joint venture, or get a license. Is the barrier to entry higher? Yes. But is it a long-lasting business that you can actually be proud of? Like, what are we doing this for? Are we just doing this thing? Well, I'll do some wholesale deals and then I'll raise some funds and then I'll just be a flipper and I won't do any more wholesale deals and I'll just build a portfolio and all this other stuff. And I'm not going to really wholesale for that long. Okay. Or are you going to build an actual business? You're going to build a long-lasting business that you have flexibility to have different exit strategies. If that's the case, get a license. Get a license. I've been saying it for years. I've been saying it since Illinois came out with it. And everybody that I work with, so we do Google marketing for the top companies in the country, licensed. The top states that we do it in require license because there's nobody else doing it in those states because other knuckleheads don't want to get a license. So be smart. Be smart out there. Build a real business. Get something that you can have flexibility on all sorts of different different ways that you can approach property owners, different offers that you can make. And that's how you stay bulletproof. Because I'm telling you, real estate changes all the time. Real estate changes all the time. But finding, evaluating, and converting really great opportunities is the name of the game. Always has been. You could read real estate investing books from, the mid 1900s. And for you young people, that's like a bazillion years ago. I get it. But finding great opportunities is the name of the game. Having conversations, quality conversations with property owners that want to trade price for speed and convenience is the name of the game. So go out there, build the skills, build a real business, make sure that you're following all the regulations so that you can stand on business, so that you can, success is a good night's sleep. So make sure that you can get a good night's sleep knowing that your business model is something that is long lasting, because we're not trying to be in real estate for a year or two. We're trying to be in real estate for the next 50 years. So make sure that you do it right, and make sure that you implement, and make sure that you understand what is required in the states that you work with. All right. Love you guys. I'll see you next week. Boom. Boom.